Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the latest edition of Fanatec's racing wheel lineup, the Mclaren GT3, a surprisingly good replica of the real GTE wheel. So let's get to it. Now let's take a closer look at the Mclaren GT3 wheel. First off, the case has this simulated carbon fiber pattern on the front and on the back, and it's got the silk screening on here. This carbon fiber pattern actually shows up through the silk screen, I want to say, or maybe that's just the way they did it, but I don't know how that's going to show up on. Yeah, I think that shows it right there, so you can see the squares are kind of coming through. Kind of a cool look, actually. We've got the little screen up here, obviously, for doing our settings, and just like all the other Fanatec wheels, we've got 5 different settings that we can save. And all the buttons around here feel, actually there's kind of a different thing going on here with these buttons as far as the feel. These are very easy, these Xbox buttons, and these are very hard. The neutral up here, it's really hard to press that, so you won't be accidentally hitting it. Probably the real wheels are configured the same way. Over here we have pit, P, and that's the same as this one here, and these are kind of a laser etching in these switches, or rather the caps for the switches. I don't know how well you're going to see that, but anyway, you have to be here to feel that. Got nice shields around them, so you won't accidentally hit them, but they're so stiff, even if you accidentally hit them, I would imagine that you would not press them all the way down and activate them. And again, we've got some more of these easier to press buttons up here on the corners, and we've got some toggle switches up and down on both sides over here. Now here we have some selectors, right? So we can just map these to whatever we want to for regular rotaries. And down here, we can't map this to anything because it's actually changes what the analog paddles will be doing on the wheel. And yeah, we got A, B, C, D, and we can use it for a handbrake, we can use it for a throttle and a brake, but I think most people will be using it on the A setting, which makes this a dual clutch setting, so we have a bite point, and we're actually going to do that. I'm going to test it. They've got some new firmware out that actually makes it a little easier to adjust the bite point on the clutches, but we'll get to that when we get to the driving section. Right, we've got the normal funky switch over here that's a 4-way switch, and also a rotary both ways, and you can actually press it down. Very cool. I really like these type of switches. I think Fanatec should actually put another one over here somewhere. Maybe put the Xbox up there, because you can really, especially for VR drivers, you can do a lot. I mean, we got 7 inputs on each one of these, so yeah, 2 of them, 14 inputs without even having to look down at your wheel or lift your VR hood up so you can see what's going on. So what else we want to look at here? Pretty much that's it. Just the, it's a regular Fanatec button feel, except for these guys up here. And these rotaries are very tactile as far as your feedback on them, so I do like that about them. They're not easy to turn. They got a nice click to them and a nice firm. Once you've clicked it, you can feel it even if you're wearing gloves. Which brings us to the grips. Obviously, these grips were made not really with the gloved driver in mind because of this slick rubber. It's very smooth. I don't know how well you're going to see this here, but typically on a rubber gripped wheel for real driving, you'll see a lot of dimpling texture on here so that you can use driving gloves with the rubber. My driving gloves, I've got several different types and I've tried, and they're all kind of slippery on this, so it's better just to drive it with your hand. Now, I know they do make some driving gloves that have gel, really jelly, or not jelly, but a gel type of material on the fingers and the palms to able to grip maybe the smoother one better, but yeah, those tend to wear out pretty quick too. So we've got looks like about, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got about 10 screws here that we're going to have to take off to get inside, but we'll get to that later when we actually take a look inside. Right, so we'll just cruise around to the back, and first thing you see, obviously the biggest thing you notice here is this big orangish color rocker paddle shifter, and this is an aluminum piece. And it's got this nice grippy texture on it, if you can see it here, which is nice to be able to grip that and pull it. And it's done pretty well as far as the edges. I don't sense any real sharp edges here. So, yeah, I was worried about that when I first saw it because I think I scratched something with this when I bumped it against it. I said, oh my gosh, is that really sharp on there? It's really not, but it could be a little better though, I think, because, but gloves it doesn't matter, but if you're using your regular hands, you could, it does get rough after a while. After doing thousands of shifts, yeah, it might wear on you a bit. But nice grip though, and that's the important part. You want good grip so it doesn't slip when you're trying to shift. Now, this is a rocker setup, as you can see. So it just rocks back and forth. And it does have a pretty good tactile feedback, actually. It feels like you're really shifting something instead of just pulling it and it just bumping up against a stop. Yeah, this is actually feels pretty good. You know you've made a shift when you actually pull this shifter. I'm not crazy about the rocker design, but that's the design they use on actual racing wheels too. But it works, and that's all that matters. And I do like the color, actually. It kind of grows on. When I first saw it, I said, why do they do that? But like I said, this is a replica, and yeah, they're going to try to do everything they can to make it just like the other one. A lot of plastic here, as you imagine, and it's a really high. I don't know if they need that much height internally for the electronics, or they just did that so it's modeling the thickness of the real Mclaren wheel. Right. We've also got these clutch paddles, and they can be used for other things, like I said before, with that selector switch, but I'll be using it as a clutch, and we'll have the initial bite point, which will be the right one over here. You release that, pop it, and the car starts rolling, and then we can just let it out like a motorcycle clutch and finish the launch for the car. And it should be very smooth without any wheel spin, not smoking the tires or anything. So instant acceleration is what you want off the line, obviously, in that kind of a start. In here we see the usual Fanatec pinout for connecting to their wheelbases. Nothing special there. But you will notice on this quick release that there's actually bolts around it, unlike, say, the CSL Elite wheel that comes with that wheel set. It's molded all in one piece, but you can actually remove this because guess what? They actually have an upgradable quick release for your Mclaren wheel, and not just for this Mclaren wheel, but moving forward, most of, and this is Fanatec's words, most of their wheels will be available like this. They'll have this plastic with this little lock ring. You can see this thin metal they're using on this cinching down ring, which will, of course, you can see the slots cut in here, so as we cinch it down, it tightens up on the wheel, or rather the steering wheel shaft that's coming off the motor. And you can replace that with the aluminum one that you see here, which is just like the aluminum one that we see on the Club Sport wheels. But that is going to cost you another $100 to do that. Right. So moving forward, that's what Fanatec's going to do with all their wheels. They're going to have this little plastic piece here with the bolts so you can take it off and put the other quick release on in instead for another $100. Now, of course, you can just take, if you have several of these wheels, different types, that you want to use on your different cars, then you'll either have to unbolt that quick release and bolt it on the one you want to use, or you're going to have to buy more than one quick release that will work on the shaft for your steering on the motor, which is not a bad way to make some more money, I guess. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. It actually has some play in it, but we'll look at that in it once we get to the driving part. But, it is just thin plastic. You don't really not expecting much. And again, not really a knock on Fanatec. I mean, this is a $170 wheel here, and it does a lot, I think, for the $170. And you're going to have to, manage those expenses on manufacturing a wheel like this in somewhere. So, yeah, that's what they've come up with. One way to do it is right there. Just go ahead and forget about all the wheels coming with that aluminum quick release, as has been done in the past. We'll just put this plastic one that is obviously a lot less expensive than the metal one. And we'll just sell the metal one for another $100. Hey, there you go. Right. Also, before we go anywhere else, let's take a look at this cool little feature here. Well, it's cool anyway. I don't know if it'll wear on us eventually and not be so cool afterwards, because you have to reach around the back of the wheel and pull this thing out. And it's pretty stiff. You saw it locks in pretty good there. So I guess with repeated use, obviously it's going to get a little looser, but you really got to tug on this thing. So you got to get your hand in behind the wheel if it's already attached and wrestle with that. And remember, this is the end right here, so there's the wheelbase. So you're going to be like right in here like this, trying to get this thing out of here. So yeah, when it's stuck in there, you really got to get in here and get a grip on it. So I just don't know. It's a very cool thing, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know how long that's going to last, the cool factor, when we have to do that every time if we want to take the cinch bolt out. But it is very nice what they've done here. And I'm going to pull this apart. And it's nice and stiff, which it should be. We don't want it coming off and flying around or what have you. And then you see there's the key, the hex key that will be working on the cinch bolt, which is, where did I put that cinch bolt? Because I've actually been using this wheel. Here it is. It's an M6. Keeping everything in my magnetic tray over there so I don't lose it. And it comes like this. So it'll be sitting, whoops, actually, I'm using another M6 apparently, and there's the one that was still in there. But the idea is that it sticks on the end of this Allen wrench, all right, 5mm Allen wrench. And of course we can just go ahead and cinch up our wheel and tighten it up with this. And then once we do that, we've got the bolt in, we put this back in here like this, put it all back together, and then make sure the F is up and shove it back in there. But then again, like I said, once you reach under here to grab it, remember the motor shaft's here, and this is pretty stiff, but I imagine it will get easier with time. So yeah, it actually does come with the cinch bolt in there, kind of sticking like this, and it's the nice shiny one. I think it is. I can't remember which one was which. If this was mine or if this is the one that came with it. It really doesn't matter. They're both the same thing. And yeah, so then that goes back in there when you have your wheel off, and you can put this back together and store it all nice and neatly in your wheel for the next use that you need it for. Right. Now, what else we want to look at here? I guess, yeah, that's, well, I tell you what. Let's check out this. This has a shore rating on it. Actually, they claim this is a 50 shore rating on this rubber grip, which should be kind of soft, but it feels a little tougher to me. But let's see. And I'm not sure what instruments they were using to measure this, but you know I have one. And I love to measure the shore rating on rubber bits. So let's see what we got here. This is on the edge here. And you can see if I rock it flat, that's pretty high. It's going just over 60, it looks like. Now I can rock this around, but all that's doing is letting this pin out, let it come back out, so it's not giving me the correct reading. So you really have to get down on it and hold it as tight as you can to get the right reading. So yeah, we're about a little over 60 on that. Let's try over here on the top, see if there's any difference. I don't know if you guys see that. Yep, about the same. So it looks like it's pretty much universal. We'll just go ahead and hit this guy just for the heck of it, because it's on the other side, and it's a different grip. And it looks like we're doing the same thing here. Yeah. So, a little over 60 actually, which is good. I mean, it's still not really hard, which you don't want, I suppose, in this kind of a wheel, a real hard grip. It's just, you want it to be a little bit pliable, but it, you know, it's 65 or whatever that was. I think it's a good medium in there as far as for the uses that this wheel is going to be put to. Now, I have been thinking about converting this to a USB wheel, and I know a lot of guys out there, a lot of you guys are thinking the same thing. Wow, we can take this off, put in this, bolt on the USB conversion on here, and then put it on our direct drive wheels. But I'm not so sure. The only concern I have about that is not the conversion part of it, but how strong this plastic is around this hub here. I just don't know how strong that is. And once we take it apart, I might get a better idea of, you know, what's in there, and if I have confidence in this flange here being able to withstand direct drive force feedback torque that a lot of guys are running on their rigs. So we'll take a look at that once we take it apart. And just before we do that, which will be next segment, I just want to show you a couple things that come with it. They give you these little stickers so that you can put those on different switches if you want. Great. And it gives us these little buttons. So if we don't want to be looking at a bunch of Xbox buttons because we're not running our wheel on the Xbox, then all we have to do is pull these up. Let's grab one of them. I'll use the up, or I guess if you turn it down, it's the down button or the up button. And to get these buttons off, you can just pry them off. Excuse me. Pry them off with your fingers, but I use this. A lot easier. And actually, this is what this is made for. So we're actually putting equal pressure on two sides of this cap as we pull it off. And it's got to help the integrity of the cap in general, I imagine. You see it pops right off that way. And if you don't even want any button at all, you can just leave a red one in there. That's red. What else we got? Now you piqued my interest. We got a red and a gray, and what else we got? I think it's an orange. Orange. Red, gray, and orange. And if you look on the side here, they're all the same color. So yeah, you'd have red, gray, and orange, and red, gray, and orange. That's a shame they didn't put like a blue and something else in here, maybe a bright yellow or a white or something. But anyway, that's the way it is. So we're going to take this little cap now and just press it on. And when you press this cap on, you want to make sure it's straight up and down, or the position you want it to be in, or orientation, because once you have it pressed on, here we go, like this. Now she's pressed on. You can't really turn it in case you get crooked or something. You're going to have to pull it back off and reset it. Right. Anyway, that's kind of a nice touch, actually. It's you know, they didn't have to do that. You know, hats off to Fanatec for actually doing that for this wheel, because there's some things that I think they did that I don't like. So it's, you know, you got to weigh the good with the bad here. Right. So what we'll do next is, when we come back, is I'm guessing we're just going to have to pull all of these screws out of here for this top to release from this rear. And I might just pull this off first, the quick release, and that might give me a better idea of what's going on inside. So when we come back, it'll be the look inside segment. All right, now for the fun part. Let's see what's inside this wheel and how it actually comes apart. First off, I think I will just go ahead and start with this quick release, because obviously there's a replaceable quick release, and we can buy that $100 aluminum fancy one and stick that on in place of this. I'm curious on how that system actually works. So there's only one way to find out, and that is to take these 6, I think these are 4 mil hex cap head hex screws. So we'll go ahead and take those out. And I just happen to have my driver over here to do that with, and my super long 4mm wrench. So I love these things because you can get down past these kind of raised areas where if you had just a socket or something, it might interfere with the side. Anyway, what we're going to do is go ahead and take all 6 of these off, and I'll kind of tilt it so you guys can see most of them anyway coming off, and just get to it. Alright, so we've got all 6 out, and as usual, I like to show you guys when I'm actually pulling off of these devices. It's got a little hardness rating on it there. I don't know how clearly you'll be able to see that. Just a little washer here, and it looks like an M5 thread, I would imagine. Doesn't look quite big enough to be an M6. Anyway, so M5, and it is a 4mm cap head. Very nice looking unit, actually. I like the color. This kind of a nickel or gunmetal gray color to these bolts. So very cool. All right, so now how does this come off? Looks like it comes off pretty easy. I don't know if there's any wires in here, so let's see if you guys can watch me pull this off. Well, shoot, it just comes off, it looks like. Yep, sure enough. All right, there you go. This comes right off. Now, let's look at the hub itself. And first thing I noticed when I took it off is it's got all these ribs in it. See all those ribs right around this perimeter here? So that gives it obviously some more strength, because they left that in the injection mold process. They left those in there obviously for strength. And it looks like it actually thickens. It looks like it's getting thicker. You see that there? Once it gets to the actual flange part that's bolting on here. So that looks like a thicker plastic than what's in the neck here. Right, and we have a locating tab right here that will go, looks like it goes right in that hole right there. So that'll keep us from putting on in the wrong way. So yeah, that just kind of goes in there. Well, there we go, like that. Then bolts back in and you're good to go. So that's how you do the quick release changes. So not that bad, actually, as far as if you just get one of those aluminum quick releases, the $100 ones. You could switch them between the wheels, because this looks like the way Fanatec's going to be making them now, which is like this. And we're putting some, looks like some brass threaded inserts in every one of the screw holes, which is good. We like to see metal in there. Not sure exactly how thick this is. Maybe we can get a better idea of that. This whole flange area here. Once we actually get the front off of this and look on the other side, we might be able to see something. But even if this is real thick, it's still connected to this area here. So again, the only reason I'm concerned about this is I want to use this on a direct drive force feedback system, and I'm just want to make sure that it can take the force of it. Right. And because we're disassembling things, we'll go ahead and pull. Again, this thing's pretty tough. Here we go. Get this out of the way just in case there's something going on and deep in the hole there messing us up when we try to take the front plate off, which we will do now. So looks like we've got, yeah, like I said before, if you looked at the closer look, we've actually got 10 Torx head screws, and they are number 10. Sorry, checked it. And we also have some dowels and rotaries here, so usually those have nuts on them. Not sure about these guys here, the toggles, but maybe they do too, but we're going to find out. So the first thing I'm going to do is see if these caps will come off without me breaking something. So I'm kind of sure they will. Typically they're just press fit on, so I'm just going to kind of grab it between my finger and thumb here and wiggle on it and see if I can get it to come off. There we go. It came off. Now if it didn't come off easily, then I would have just gotten this over here, because that makes your life a little bit easier to get it under these pieces of plastic here. And this is a non-marring plastic material, so it shouldn't damage the surface here. But you can see that just popped right off when I did that. So we'll go ahead and pull it the rest of the way off. It is a keyed post in there. You can see the flat spot in there and the corresponding flat spot on the post itself on these. Very simple, actually. We'll go ahead and keep all these over here. And then see if this one will pull off. Yeah, that one just came off. But again, nice to have this around, or this kind of thing around, if you're going to be doing this kind of work on, well, anything you do work on, because they're very handy to have. Right, so there's our 3 caps off, and sure enough, we've got nuts that we're going to have to remove off of these before this top will come off. I guarantee they got to come off. Now, the only question is, what's going on with these toggle switches? And I think if you just get your finger in on this toggle switch, it's a rubber boot here. And I can't see what's going on, obviously, with that rubber boot in the way. So what I'm going to do is try to do this while you guys watch me. And I'm going to, this toggle, remember, it moves down, so it might be enough for me to get the tip of my finger in here and grab that rubber, kind of roll it off. If I can do, yeah, there we go. And the nail, my fingernail kind of grabbed it too there. There we go. Ah, awesome. So there it is. So just a little rubber boot. And it should not be too difficult to get this back on, I imagine. Right. So let's get the other rubber boot off the same way. All right, good. Nice. And yep, there's our little nuts on there too. These are 8 mil, and these are 13 mil, I believe. Yes, 13 mil. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these loose first before I take any of these screws out. It's just the way I want to do it. Of course, you could do it any way you want to. And what I'll do is, yeah, that was a 13. And remember, this is all plastic here, okay? This is actually, feels like this is a plastic bit here too. So you don't have to put a lot of force on this. You should be able to do this with fingers, even from the factory when they torque it down, because they can't torque it down much either, or they're going to crack it. So you got to be careful with this stuff. And that socket just fits in that hole, and I can just, again, with my fingers, I can loosen that. So we'll get it loose a little bit, and then we'll roll the rest of it off. So I'll do the same thing to the other two. Just want to get that nut loose, and then I'll use my finger to spin it off. All right, so we'll do these big boys first. And you can see you can just kind of spin that off. And there's always going to be a washer behind this. You can see that real thin nut. And there's always a washer behind these. Now this happens to be one of those little multi-edged lock washers. Right, so I'm going to keep everything nice and neat, and I'll just put it over here in my magnetic dish so I won't lose them. And we'll just do the other two the same way. Everything's coming off nice and neat, just the way we like to have it done. Okay. All right, good. 2 more there. Wow, this is just so easy. Everybody should do it. I wouldn't be doing this unless I had a reason really to get in here, and I have a reason because I do videos. So And that one came right off, obviously. And we've got the smaller nut here. Oh, and there's an extra here. So there's something a little extra for us to be mindful of. You can see we still have the nut in that same washer there, but we've got this little washer. Put this over here. And this little washer is a tabbed type of washer. So you can see this little tab on the inside. Well, the shaft, that's threaded shaft on that toggle switch, and it's got another one here that helps locate the other side of it. So that locates on the top. I don't know how well you guys are going to see this, but there is a tab manufactured into this metal. Let's see if you guys can see that. So that's where that metal, that inside tab goes, and of course the outside tab locates in one of these little slots here that are in the plastic. So just something to be mindful of when you're putting it back together. I always like to stop for a minute and look at this stuff because obviously I'm going to be putting it back together, and just to make sure that I'm familiar with what needs to be done to properly get these fasteners back on. Right, so we'll grab the other one. Again, these are 8 mils. I'm just using a deep socket here, kind of like a handle and a wrench all in one. Well, let me go ahead and get this rest away. There we go. And there we go. We got the 3 pieces for that one too. Definitely don't want to lose any of this stuff, so we keep it over here on our magnet dish. Okay, so now we've got all of our lock nuts off, or locking nuts that would lock this top on. We definitely would not be able to get it because I can see right here, this is all one piece. So that's where the hole is, right down in there. Now all we've got to do is get these. Now these are Torx number 10s, and we've got to get all of these out before this top will come off. So we just have to change out my tool, and we're going to put in this guy, which is a little Torx bit type deal, and go ahead and pull those off. And we'll speed it up as usual so you guys don't have to sit there and watch me do this because I got 10 of them to do. So now we can see the kind of screws that are coming out of here. Again, that is a Torx head number 10, and the typical sheet metal wood type aggressive thread that we use on all these plastic attachments. You know, we always see that in there. No big deal, just 10 of them to do. All right, so now hopefully this thing will be ready to come off. Now I don't know if there's wires behind here or not, so I'll kind of get things to where I can just kind of split them and let them fall apart if that's possible, but I don't know how this. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and this whole thing's just coming right off. And oh, cool, no wires. Hey, how about that? Bonus. I don't have to reach in there and try to struggle to get a clip off of something. Of course, this is all our buttons here, and they just slide into these holes. Get a little better look at that. And of course, the other side, you can see the button. The reason they're not falling out is because of the caps we put on there. You can see I've actually replaced. Oh, that one fell out. So apparently these, yep, I got 2 of them that will fall out. But the other ones have the caps on them, so they're actually capturing them, not letting them fall through, which is very handy. Unfortunately, our neutral and park buttons don't do that. But that's okay. Not only that, but let's say I didn't want neutral over here, or I didn't want park button. I meant pit button. I don't want the P over here. I want it over here, and I want the neutral over there. Then guess what? The cool thing is we can actually switch these around when we're putting it back together. And I might do that because I like to have my pit on the left hand for some reason. Oops. And you got to straighten up. These are keyed in type switch deals, or buttons. You can see these slots in them here. And we have corresponding slots in this, right over here in this cap, or in the plastic. And you just want to make sure that's straight when you drop it in there. That way it won't roll around. Once it's in there, it's locked down by these little tabs. Right, cool. Let's go ahead and take these back out because I know they're going to fall out again and go flying somewhere, so I'll just go ahead and preemptively strike here and take them off. Right, not much to see here. Just, and there's rattling because of the buttons, not because something in here else is rattling. It's just the buttons rattling around inside. Very thin plastic. Yeah, not much to see here really, and I didn't expect it to be much more than this because this is not a structural part of the wheel. It's just a cap or a cover. A beauty ring, if you will. Right. So here's where the important parts go on. And first off, I'm looking, now that I have that front off, I'm kind of flexing this thing, and just, you know, like I said, I keep saying that I want to put a USB kit on this thing eventually and use it on my direct drive wheel. And I'm just checking things like, you know, how stiff is this thing? And also, we mentioned that I'm going to try to figure out how thick this is by looking at where this little threaded, I don't know how well you guys are going to see that, but there's a little threaded piece in there that we can see on the other side, right here. And you can see it's recessed down in there a bit. And I need to measure how much room there is here, and I'm not going to do that right now. And then I will, oops, something fell off, we'll get to that. And then I can look on the other side and see where the other end of that insert is. And it looks like to me, right here, that it's pretty flush with the other end of it. So that would give me an idea just how thick that plastic is and how resistant it's going to be to cracking or flexing once I put this on a proper direct drive motor. Right. So let's take a little tour around in here. This little thing fell off. Well, I'm glad it fell off. I can show you what it is. It's just a little silicone, white silicone dust cover, if you will. It's got a little, I don't know how well you guys see this, but you can see it's got a shape of a button on it. And that actually came off of this one. So you can see these are little surface mounted switches here for our buttons. So when we press a button, you hear that tick. And so these are just little dust covers that they put to keep things quiet. Probably keeps things quiet also, but also a little dust cover to keep dust off of it. And I guess it also, you can tell the difference in the sound here, I think. I don't know how well you're going to be able to tell on my audio. Huh. I don't know if they really considered that stuff when they're manufacturing these wheels in the design process, but who knows, maybe they did. But it definitely sounds different with the silicone on top of it. Kind of mutes it a little bit. And this obviously will just go right back on this switch here, no problem. It just happened to fall off. Right. This is the switches right here. These are switches. I'm going to push them down. Those are those hard switches that are for these two guys, the pit and the neutral button. And you can see that's kind of just made into the board here. We got our toggles up here. And yeah, we got some breakout boards on the bottom here. This one is doing the Xbox switch and also the LED illumination. And it goes back over here to the board. It's called X50 on the board here. That's what the connector's called. And over here we have our funky switch breakout board. And again, it's going back over here to the main board. And you can see really not much to see here either, just the funky switch doing its thing. Let's see. Yeah, the dials, nothing else going on here. There's our set button. Look how tall that thing is. This is our settings button. It sticks pretty far up, actually. And of course, we're pressing that when we want to change our settings. And our little screen, very thin little screen there, right? And not obviously, but look at this. This is the actually empty Molex plug. I'm always curious when I break out into electronics to take a look around, what is that for? It might be something that it's just a diagnostics plug that at the factory when they're manufacturing these and putting them together, that they just plug something on here so they can run all the diagnostics without having to put out all the covers back on and set everything up like that way so they can just run diagnostics. It might be that, I don't know, but it looks like we've got a circuit right here, right next to it, that handles whatever that is. Right, nothing else really to see here. Just your typical electronics at this kind of a rating is, you know, this kind of a wheel that we get. And yeah, S2000. Oh, I didn't see that. I used to have a Honda S2000 and they're calling this button up here. I don't know if you guys can read that. See, it says S2000. Maybe they took that off the Honda S2000. All right, but we do see some ribbing in here for reinforcements, and it's really not that much. It's kind of flexible, actually, not that thick. But it still feels pretty good even without the front cover on it, even though the front cover is not really providing that much as we saw structural integrity to this whole wheel. Yeah, I'm still, yeah, I'm on the fence about this one as far as converting the USB, but I might do it anyway just to see what happens. Right, so not much else to see here. Yeah, that's it. So what we'll do next, obviously, I've got to put this all back together. I'm not going to make you guys suffer through that because it always takes longer to put something back together than it does to take it apart, because you have to be more careful when you're putting it together. I did not pull the shifter off. Now the shifter has a pin in it, obviously you can see that, and the pin, I can see it in here. I don't know if you guys will ever be able to see that if I can get the right angle on it, but there's the bottom of the pin. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's in there. There it is. And there's got to be some way that you have to drive or push that out to release this, and it's really not much to see here anyway. The switches are internal. They're going to be mounted on the other side of this board, and they're internal. And the only thing really you're going to be able to see is a spring under it, and well, you can see that anyway. See the spring over here, right there. That's all there is to it. A little spring there. It's a capture spring on a plastic piece that's sticking up. Right. So there we have it. Now, oh, one more thing. These are our clutch leads down here. So this is what the analog switch is on each one of these. We got one over here. We got one over here. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but when you move this, I don't know if you guys ever see that. Maybe. But you might be able to see that moving when I'm actually using it. I think the light's reflecting on it so you can see it. So there you go. So we got two of those in the bottom there. So if anything goes wrong with these things, it looks like it's going to be easy to replace them if you can get Fanatec to actually send you the part. If something goes bad like this funky switch, just unplug it, 2 screws, you're out, you're back in, good to go again. So I like that part of it. It looks like it's easy to work on, easy to replace the whole board. Yeah, so I like what I'm seeing here. And again, typical Fanatec, good work here. You know, they do quality work where it needs to be done, and that looks pretty good to me. Right. Again, we'll put it all back together, and when we come back, what are we going to do next? I guess we're going to actually be just running the wheel when we come back, and we'll be running it on the CSL Elite base and just see how we like it. Alright, so we're going to start off here in iRacing in the Daytona prototype. I think it's the 2017, the newest one. And, you know, there's not a lot I can say about the wheel except for the usual things. You know, does it feel good in the hand? And it does. This 300 millimeter spacing is just about the sweet spot for me, I think, because I have a couple of the wheels that are 300 millimeters that feel really great. And I can drive long distances with them without getting too fatigued, compared to like a 320 or even the narrow 270s and 250s. I think probably 280 is about the limit as far as how narrow a wheel I can go with a wheel before it starts getting uncomfortable. But yeah, this wheel feels great. The rubber grips feel good and a little bit too slick for driving gloves, so that's why you see me not wearing driving gloves. That's one thing I would like to see them, you know, put some kind of a texture on the smooth rubber on the handles. That's one of the complaints I have. It's not really a complaint, it's just something I'd like to see done. Now we're in the C7R Corvette in Assetto Corsa at Laguna Seca, the corkscrews, and again, same thing. You know, all the buttons here are well placed. They're easy to get to with your fingers, and I really didn't have any complaints about any of that. All the rotaries work good, easy to program what we need to on them. The shifters themselves, even though I'm not a big fan of this rocker design, it, you know, well, it does its job, and it does have a good tactile feel, so you can feel when you've made that shift from that click. So it's not just like some shifters that Fanatec has that are just, you know, you're running your finger against it until, or you're pulling your fingers against it until it basically just hits the stop, and yeah, no real feel of what you're doing there, except for when you stopped, you know you should have shifted. Right, so yeah, again, I'm having fun with this wheel, and just for the heck of it, I went over and took out my Xbox, and because this wheel is for Xbox, and I just want to make sure that it took my CSL Elite PlayStation licensed wheelbase and let me drive with it on Xbox, and it did, just like it's supposed to. So just want to pull that out to check that real quick. And yeah, overall, you know, I can't complain about this wheel. It feels good in hand. It really does. I think Fanatec's done a good job here. Not many companies are doing this, the replica thing, and getting it right, I think. But yeah, this one feels right, and yeah, I'm having fun using it. I just don't know how to respond to direct drive motors when I get it on that, but we'll see that once I get around to doing that. So next what we'll do is get to the dual clutch. Alright, so here's the process for setting the bite point. I'm going to use the right paddle as my bite point paddle. I put it in one selector, the B, and then I'll bring it back to A just to make sure I'm getting it in the right selection. You got to put it in gear, obviously, and then you're going to pull in the clutch paddle that you want to use, in my case the right one you saw right there. And then I'm pushing up on the funky switch till I get a number. I'm trying to, there it is. Now I've got a number. So now I can dial in how much clutch I want. So what I'm going to do is accelerate with the clutch in, that pedal doesn't move, and I'm going to start dialing it down. You'll see the car move. See it starting to move as I'm getting less and less clutch engaged. And there we go. See, I'm rolling, and that was at like 60 something. And now what I'm doing is just popping it on and off just to see how fast it starts rolling from the stop. And at 60, I'm just real not happy. I'm still not happy with it, so I'm going to roll it down to 50 and try that. Now I think I'm happy. So now we're going to actually test it. And what we'll do is actually floor it with both paddles in. There we go. And then you'll see the right one snap out, and then I'll follow with the left one like a motorcycle clutch. So let's see how that works. Here we go. Here's the right one. Follow with the left. See, I'm just following with the left. Perfect. Yeah, no smoke or anything like that. And again, you can play with this as much as you want as far as where the bite point is. And yeah, you see it just went to 49 there. I don't know why it did that because I didn't touch anything, but yeah, now I'm just going to dial it down to 40 and try that. Like I said, you can play with this to your heart's content to try to figure out what you want to do. So see that flashing 1 there? It's not going to work. See how it stalled out on me? It has to say the number of the clutch bite point percentage in that little window, or it's not going to work. And this is a beta driver, so this is why we're having some issues. There we go. Now it's working because you saw the number was in the window. So if you're at a start in a race, you better make sure that that percentage number is in your window, because when you start to floor it, it just won't go, or it won't work right, and then you'll be sitting there while everybody passes you or runs into the back of you in the start. So again, I'm just going to go through this a couple more times and show you guys that, yeah, it works really well as far as when it's working, but again, this is a beta driver, so, and now I'm just playing with it to see why it works or doesn't work. I'm just pulling the paddles in. As you'll see, sometimes I'm pulling these paddles in, the number doesn't come up. There's just nothing there. And there it goes. Now it's up. Now it's, you know, I'm just playing with it, trying to figure out why it's doing that. But once we have that number up there, we should be good for our dual clutch launch. Our bite point should work, but that number has to be in that window. You can see now I'm doing it, and it just nothing's coming up. There we go. So now I'm actually going to try it. Here we go. There we go. See, it works as long as the number's in there. So it's a lot of fun actually messing around with this and getting the bite point where you want. And of course you can play with it all you want to. But you see, my number's not in there. The 40 is not in there. So as long as that's not in there, it won't work. You know, you should be sitting there doing nothing when you're pressing the throttle. So you got to pay attention to that little window. It'll come back here in a minute. There we go. Now I got it again, and I'll probably try it again here. There we go. Snap out the right one. There it goes. And follow with the left. Perfect. 40 is actually probably where I would leave this car. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell, what we're doing here as far as the starts. And yeah, I like that it actually works. But like I said, this is a beta driver. And yeah, beta is as beta does. So what we'll do next is, yeah, now that we've done the driving and the setting the bite point, we'll just go ahead and get to the final thoughts on the Fanatec Mclaren GT3 wheel. Final thoughts on Fanatec's Mclaren GT3 wheel. You know, I've always liked it when real racing teams get together with commercial gaming peripheral companies to bring a product that is very close to the real part that is used in today's racing cars to the market. And the GT3 is the latest example of this type of collaboration. Now, Fanatec was able to use the actual CAD drawings that were used to produce the authentic GT3 wheel used in the real MP412C car. Now, of course, some things were lost in the translation, but the look of the wheel is very close to the real one. All the buttons and toggle switches are here, with only the center rotary dial being left off to accommodate the mandatory Fanatec setting screen. Now, the wheel does feel quite good in hand and lends itself to a good driving experience. I like the molded rubber grips that seem to fit my hands rather well, and allowed me to keep a nice tight grip on the wheel without any slipping, even when I was really driving aggressively and pushing hard. Now, the shifter paddle assembly worked well with a nice tactile click when completing a shift. Although I'm not a great fan of this center pivot design, it still works great. At first I had some issues trying to get the clutch bite point set up on the wheel, but with a beta release of Driver Pack 311, it became a much easier process to go through. Even though it's not perfect yet, I'm sure it will be once they get all the bugs worked out. Still, the fact that we can even get a dual clutch function on a wheel that cost $170 is a good indicator of how the trickle-down effect is bringing more cool features to the entry-level market that before were only seen on higher-end wheels and button plates. Now, I didn't like the amount of flex I was getting with the stock hub. When it was attached to the wheelbase, it was easy to rock the wheel back and forth. Even though it had less flex than the CSL Elite wheel that I had tested in an earlier review that you may have seen. Still, a bit much for my liking. Well, of course, there is the option of paying $100 to get the add-on all-metal Fanatec quick release adapter. And from the wording on Fanatec's website, it seems that more of the new wheels being released in the future will have the same upgrade model apply to them. But I'm not really sure if that's going to really include their future premium racing wheels. At least I hope it wouldn't. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, I have thought about converting this wheel to having a USB capacity and allowing it to be used with my direct drive wheel systems. But I'm just not real sure how well this wheel is going to be able to handle the extra forces after seeing the plastic and how it's made where the hub will attach. But you know what? In the future, I'll probably do the conversion anyway, just to see if it can. Overall, for the price point, I think Fanatec has done a good job on this wheel. You sure can't complain of how it looks on your wheelbase. Very cool indeed. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and visit our website at simracinggarage.com.